something special because it was the main part of my life.
My whole life has been music. I could not imagine anything else.
Never would have imagined in my craziest dreams this little Dutch boy could create such a ruckus.
If you're a musician, you just play until the day you die. We didn't have a clue, really, but what got us to getting a record deal is we believed in ourselves, and we wouldn't take no for an answer.
The reason I signed them was because of Ed, because of his ability. I didn't really care about anybody else. I just wanted that genius to be recognized by the world.
Ted was completely just knocked out by the way Ed played, and well, the next day we signed. We were just babes in the woods. We knew nothing about nothing. So we signed the worst deal for us that you can ever imagine.
They called it a Motown deal.
Okay. Now, we had an 11-point deal, and 3 points went to Ted, our producer.
The producer.
Okay?
Ted still makes more money than I do on those first two.
Oh, yeah, he makes more than all of us.
But he's still Ted.
As long as I get paid, that's all I care about. So the reason I signed them was because of Ed, but then I realized that the band were a great cohesive unit.
We took a very simple approach to the whole thing. It was not as if we were to sit down and say, okay, let's write a song. It was, let's go and play.
We all piece it together. I mean, Alan, my brother's great at arranging. It's a group thing, but without me, it wouldn't be. It always comes from me. I'm the spark plug in the engine. So it is kind of a burden, but it's a challenge at the same time.
We all used to bring pieces of music into the basement, and I remember when Ed brought in Running with the Devil. That chord structure and that whole deal, the moment I heard that, I said, okay, Ed, you're writing all the songs from now on, because we can't compete with that. It was just absolutely brilliant to my ear. It was amazing.
In talking about love, the whole song came together within about 5 minutes. Ed had the music, and we just played, and Roth would sing to it, and if it was good, we'd keep it.
You talk about love, it's such a stupid thing to us, you know, 2 chords, hey, hey, hey. You know, we were making fun of punk.
You know, even before the first record, we had so much material that at that point, it's like, you know, just kind of picking and choosing from that stuff.
Before we went into the studio to do the first album, we did a demo tape for Warner Brothers, you know, with Ted and Donn. We put that 30 songs in like 2 days, and out of that, picked the songs for the first album.
Tone is one of the most important things about this band.
It's my voice. All kinds of guitarists used to come and snoop around and see what the hell I was doing, but it was pretty basic, really. It was just turn all the way up.
I play very loud in the studio because I like to feel it, you know, like the harmoniers move. But see, there's a difference between loud and this thing I call a warm brown sound, a warm, rich, tony sound.
A lot of it has to do with the way I play, you know, that you can't remove it whether you like it or not.
Ed used to call it sound chasing. Our instrument is our voice. This is how we connect with the world. And Ed and I had a running battle with every engineer, producer, just to get to where we wanted to go.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We never knew much about recording, overdubbing. That's why when we did our first album, I said, hey, Ted, I've never done overdub. Can I just play live? So I did, and, you know, Ted freaked out. So, whoa, you know, it doesn't even need another guitar.
I was nailed. But what got me, in addition to that, his musical sensibility was pop. So as a technician, I'd never heard that before. His technical ability, but in also just his overall sound that he already had there.
The only thing we did overdub was the the backing vocals.
We had no keyboard, we had no pumping brass section, you know. So what are we gonna do to add a little color to the chorus? We'll sing. Okay, let's get some harmonies going here, which to this day is fairly rare in big rock sound. You'll hear a lot of vocals stacked up in unison. There's kind of a gang thing. We say we want wild. This kind of thing. But as far as 4 and 5 part harmonies and things like this is the Temptations played to the background of Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin.
No auto-tuning, no reverb.
They had their own commerciality there.
What was the album recorded?
Oh, Sunset Sound. I like that room. Just a big room. It's like our basement, actually. Beer cans all over the floor, pinks, hot dog smears all over the place. But in order for us to be comfortable, it's got to be, just do what we want.
They were young, and the first time in the studio, older, you come in and it's like, okay, here we go again. But these guys were just so happy to be in the studio. It was so cute, and the energy was great,
The band always did its best when we were just allowed to walk in and play, and record the band while they're playing. So it was like a snapshot of the time.
They came in and banged out that record in I think 5 days. Yeah.
The first one.
The first one.
We already were pretty much who we were, because that's why it only took us a week to record the first record. We just went in and played.
With Van Halen, I don't perform with them, but I go and I watch their shows and I see what they want to get across live, and I really incorporate that into what I do in the studio. My job is sort of just try to make the artist sound good, and make them sound like themselves.
Everything was basically done in first, second go.
The music, I'd say, took a wheel, including Jamie's Cryin, which we wrote in the studio. And my guitar solo.
Lately, everybody's going, oh, Eddie Van Halen didn't invent tapping. And I never claimed that I did, but I do know how and when I figured out how to do it. Alex and I used to go to every concert at the Forum in LA, and Led Zeppelin's playing, and Jimmy Page is going like this.
I saw somebody do this years ago.
He's got his hand in the air, and I'm going.
So I just go, wait a minute, man, this thing right here, I can just use my finger, like a capo. Go. And it's like...
This finger, or these two, or however many you want to use, is just an extension of this hand.
Am I being stupid?
No.
When did you first hit upon your guitar playing technique, the tap technique?
Probably around 74, 75.
Was Eruption something you had been playing live?
Yeah. I think it was around the end of the Uzari days.
Had you ever heard of anybody else doing anything like that?
No, honestly, no. I'm sure people have, but I've never seen anyone.
So the technique that I originally called nailing, but it ended up being called tapping by Eddie Van Halen.
Brian may get a little, pulling out. Better remember.
This is the solo from It's Late. This uses some hammering on technique, which I never pursued very far, but for instance, Edward Van Halen has pursued a long way and made something completely different out of it, really.
One area where you're noted as a pioneer is the two-handed fretboard tapping.
In later years, after I started doing it, a few years, Van Halen actually came in before he was ever big and saw me doing it at the Whiskey, and that's where he picked it up from.
This story about you going to see Harvey Mandel at the Starwood with him, is that how it worked?
Yeah. We all love Can't Heat. They're cool. And Harvey Mandel did this little
kind of interlude with the tapping thing. We both kind of looked at each other and went, whoa, that really stood out. I believe that's when he added it to his bag of tricks.
I took lessons from Harvey in 1975 and 6 and just tried to pick up anything that he was doing. Well, I started doing that hammering stuff. Once a week we'd get together. He saw me putting my hands down on the board. It wasn't that he learned that from me, it's that he saw me using that technique, but I was more the Harvey Mandel style, whereas when Edward picked it up, it kind of turned into Eruption.
I'm sure someone else has done that before me. It's just they didn't think of applying it to rock and roll the way I did.
I never really heard anybody do with it what I did, which is actual pieces of music.
You know, Eruption wasn't really planned to be on the record. Me and Al were taking around rehearsing for a show. We had to do it in Whiskey. So I was warming up, you know, practicing my solo, and Ted walks in. He goes, "Hey, what's that?"
They might play something that they don't even remember they played. And I'll say, "What about that?" You know? And they'll say, "Oh, yeah, oh, that? Oh, that's nothing." And it turns out something that's really great, you know? Eddie especially.
That's a little solo thing I do live. And he goes, "Yeah, it's great, put it on the record."
I think of myself as a lighting man when I produce records. I just try to make people look good. I wanted the world to see Ed play, you know? That's it. That's the only reason.
Eddie changed the face of guitar, period. I don't think anybody's had as much an influence since Jimmy Hendrix.
We realized the impact he was having then, you know, when he first hit the scene.
When Eddie came out, he just bam, you know, I mean, just like, he didn't knock the board out, he just completely destroyed it.
You know, there are no rules in music, there's just cause and effect, and I think he understood that more than most people.
When we were kids, we used to listen to that first Van Halen record, and it was just insane. It was like...
We listened to the album, Van Halen 1. It was like somebody dropped the f***ing bomb, you know?
Not since Jimi Hendrix had there been a guitar player that had so much impact. It was so inspiring to me.
Eddie, listening to his playing, it really different. It was a great style and a great band.
Influenced anybody after him, and definitely whether they ever admitted it or not, all the guys before him, Brian had said it, when they heard that first album, they all quietly went like, what?
I was just like, wow, but how does anyone do that? What has he got that is so magical?
I'm still trying to figure out how I did on the record, because when I got to the top, I made a mistake. Even I can't reproduce it.
So that's the tapping, or I don't even know what they call this stuff. I didn't call it anything. The sounds on that record were a lot of years of experimentation and tearing apart guitars and opening up amplifiers and getting electrocuted and kicked around. And
There's a vibe on the record, I think, to me, because we kept it real live.
Yeah, I guess it was Chet's idea all along to make it come off as pure and simple and honest as it is live. I wasn't sure. I mean, by the time Donn got through it, I was going, wow. Yeah, I really liked it.
My satisfaction is when I hear it and it's done and they're happy with it, or if I get a call from Eddie Van Halen saying, hey, it really came out great. That really makes me feel good, you know.
Well, that's the beauty of Ted Templeman. Yeah. Is that he brings out the artist as opposed to stamping his name on it.
You should see the very first album cover that Warner Brothers designed for us. It looked just like The Clash or whoever. So we said, this shit, we came up with the logo ourselves. There's nothing wrong with pop. Hey, we're just a rock and roll band. Don't try and slot us in with the Sex Pistol thing just because it's happening.
rock and roll was not at the forefront at all on the charts or anything. But whatever music is out there, there's always room for more.
Was it your idea to release You Really Got Me as a single?
Kind of bummed me out.
because Ted wanted our first single to be someone else's tune.
Yeah, but I think still even that one, it's Van Halenized. We did it our way.
What would you have picked as the first single?
Maybe Jamie's Cryin. You know, just because it was our own.
I was told that they were going to play it like at 2 o'clock in the morning on KMET 94.7. And I stayed up, had a little clock radio, and I heard it. And I ran to your room, Al, we're on the radio! And it's still the same. Every time I hear us on the radio, it's the same thrill, excitement. It's like, I still feel like a little kid, like, wow, we're really on the radio.